You think you know this story. I can hear the version already. Drawing rooms, dance cards, polite scandal, and the sort of perfect romance that people quote on mugs. That's the comfort version. It fits on a shelf without troubling anyone. But let me tell you something blunt. There is another way to read those same pages. One that makes the whole thing smell faintly of smoke and burned paper. If you want a tidy love story, stop here. If you are willing to look a little crooked at the social season,
I do believe one must
keep
always
reading.
keep their promises.
I promise I won't make it melodramatic. I'll make it plausible. Start with the obvious, because obviousness is its own kind of concealant. Darcy's fortune is not merely the backdrop of rank and breeding. Money buys distance, and distance buys the chance to move without explanation. With enough assets, you can fund people who will carry a note across county lines. You can buy lodging
your
for a
reputation precedes
courier.
you.
You can arrange
it
the
is a favorable
repair
one.
of a carriage wheel and have a man
This web
slip
he
a letter
spins grows
inside
larger
the
by the
pannier as the laborers pretend to hammer. That sort of infrastructure
I saw that man
is
whisper
not
to the
glamorous, but it
Yes,
is
he
the
is quite the
muscle
charmer.
of a discreet life. When you have that capacity, being idle in public is the best camouflage. You attract commentary, but not investigation. His apparent reserve is not simply social awkwardness. A person
He has
who
wronged
deals
me
in
deeply,
secrets
Miss Bennet,
knows
leaving me
how
with
to
little
keep
choice
a
but to
face.
speak of his true nature.
Intimacy
How could
can
he?
be lethal to someone whose
Bless.
trade depends on
It was
distance.
a misunderstanding, I
Pride,
assure you.
then, is a practical
merely
habit
attempting to
as much
protect
as
her.
a personality trait.
He has done me the
It
greatest
instructs
injury
other
in the world
people
by
not
depriving
to
me of the
lean
means
in.
of livelihood.
It keeps questions civil and superficial.
My fortune was
That
taken from me by
stiffness
Mr.
that people
Darcy.
call dignity
I was ruined
is
and left with
also
nothing,
a margin
and he
of
enjoyed the
safety.
spectacle.
If you are always less intimate than you could be, you have fewer openings for betrayal. Think of the Meryton Assembly not as a quaint scene, but as a field office. Ballrooms are excellent for information gathering. Rich merchants, militia officers, country gentry with connections to ports and inns. Voices loosen in music, and people mention names they would never name at a committee meeting. Someone who is quietly cataloging those names will appreciate a man who stands aside and listens. A laugh here, a frown there, the placement of a person near a fireplace, a way someone accepts a glass when they should not. These are all indicators. An operative stores these like coordinates. Wickham is the part of the story that makes the rest of this puzzle cohere. He is charming in the way professional informants often are. He can make a person feel important for the price of a confession, and he can turn that confession into coin. To people who prefer tidy morals, he is a cad and a coward. To an observer who cares about lines of
It was a
information,
misunderstanding, I assure
he
you.
is a leak.
I was merely
He has the
attempting to protect
habits
her.
of someone who sells what he
He has
should
done me
not.
the greatest injury in the
Details
world by
about who
depriving me of the
moved
means of
where,
livelihood.
about payments, about men who are supposed to
My
be
fortune was taken
discreet.
from me by Mr. Darcy.
Those details
I was
are the
ruined and
currency
left with
of
nothing,
war
and he
in
enjoyed the
whispers. A
He
man
has
like
wronged
Wickham
me deeply, Miss
trades
Bennet, leaving
in
me with little
vulnerability,
choice but to speak of his
and
true
that
nature.
trading
How
can
could
be
he?
weaponized. When
Nevertheless.
Darcy and Wickham meet,
It was a misunderstanding,
don't
I
reduce
assure
their
you.
collision to a
I was merely
domestic
attempting
drama.
to protect her.
Imagine instead two animals testing
vain
each
have I
other
struggled.
for weakness. Every barb, every pointed
You are the
silence
last man
is
in
a
the world whom
probe.
I could ever be prevailed on to
Darcy's
marry.
coolness is not merely hauteur. It is
I
a
have not known you
mode
a month
of
before I felt you were
interrogation.
the last man in the world whom I could
Wickham's
ever be
facile
prevailed on to
charm
marry.
is the method
I
of
would
getting
not marry
under a
you if you were
door
the last
that should
man in the
remain
world.
shut. That feud that everyone reshapes into personal grievance is, in practical terms, a contest over access to people
Subject, Wickham.
and
Financial
documents.
mismanagement
What
and
looks
gambling
like
debts.
wounded
Deceptive practices.
pride
History of
is
manipulation.
often a
Clear and present
defensive
danger to our
maneuver.
operations.
Then there's the matter of Darcy's first proposal. Clumsy and ill-timed as it is, people read it as passion overcome by poor phrasing. Read it another way, and it is a breach in discipline. The man who has trained himself to be unreadable lets a part of himself be visible. And the visibility
I was so
is
blind,
dangerous.
so foolish.
An operative cannot afford to position emotion where it will cloud judgment. Elizabeth's refusal in that moment is not only a personal wound, it is a reminder of a rule. It shows him exactly what his openness can cost. Lydia's elopement feels comic on the page if you like scandal as entertainment. But it reads like a security breach when you widen the lens. A woman who marries a man like Wickham gives him
Your
legitimate
family's
entrance
reputation,
into certain
my dear
networks.
Elizabeth, has always been a point
Marriage
of
is
considerable
not
concern.
merely a private
I
affair.
have never met such
It
a
is
woman
social
in all my life.
authorization.
Her character
Where he
and
once
behavior
had to
are
scrape
truly
for
shocking.
favors and bribe for names,
I can
he
assure
now
you
has
that
kinship
everything he told
and
you
access.
was true.
That is dangerous in a time when knowledge about troop placements, supply schedules, and officers' rotations could determine the fate of a campaign. A seemingly private disgrace becomes a vulnerability for the state. Darcy's response to that crisis is surgical. The payments he makes, the commissions he arranges, the hush-hush conversations he sponsors are not displays of sentimental largesse. They are tools of containment. He uses money to reroute risk, to buy silence, to place people where their capacity to harm becomes negligible. To everyone else, it looks like noble intervention, a wealthy man rescuing
No,
a
it can't
family from
be.
disgrace. To someone who keeps ledgers of consequence. Other things. It is neutralization. Wickham is moved to a place where his ability to trade secrets is minimal. His potential handlers are cut off. The channels that might have transmitted intelligence are closed. That is the work of an operator, not merely an embarrassed benefactor. Only once those margins are secured does Darcy allow himself a different approach. The second proposal at the novel's end is quieter because the stakes have lessened. The ledger has been balanced. There is a practical relief in that quietness. A man who has spent years wearing a particular face may permit himself a small change when the reasons for the face have been removed. The marriage is
No, it
both
can't
a
be.
consolation and a new kind of cover, a domestic shield that makes scrutiny less likely, and perhaps offers him the ordinary life he had put aside. Look closely at the ephemera that authors often leave in a drawer. Letters that come
Where is she,
late,
Wickham?
sudden visits to
nothing to
town
you.
that have no
Tell me now, I will
apparent
not.
social motive. A servant whose
You have gone too
presence
far,
is
Wickham.
oddly
I
timed.
have done nothing.
Those are not mere conveniences of plot. They are the little mechanisms
You will
that make
confess your
clandestine work possible. An estate can be a ledger in disguise. Money is shifted
seen
to
through
pay
your
a courier
deceptions.
under the pretense of repairs. A coach is hired for a seemingly innocent errand, and a man in the village who appears to complain too much about the weather is the very person who knows which ship left on which tide. Elizabeth presents a particular problem and a surprising solution. She is too keen-eyed to be safely ignored.
Wickham.
She notices
I have
things
done nothing.
and asks the blunt question. That can be a hazard for someone who relies on
confess your
opacity.
crimes.
But instead of removing the variable, Darcy renders her an ally. He ports her
I
in
have seen
part
through your deceptions.
because she is the rare civilian who can be trusted with an imperfect truth
I now pronounce
without
you
being
husband
a threat.
and wife.
Her sharpness becomes a shield rather than a liability. Love,
You may
in
kiss
this
the bride.
frame, grows alongside strategic choice
I now
She is
pronounce
both
you husband
affection
and wife.
and practical ally. This interpretation does not strip
am
the
Lady
story
Catherine de
of
Bourgh. My
tenderness.
character demands I
It
speak with
simply
authority, and I,
relocates
Elizabeth
where
Bennet, known for
tenderness
my
is
sharp wit and
permitted to
independent
grow.
spirit. You are to
The
understand,
gentleness
Miss
that
Bennet,
appears
I shall
once
not
danger
suffer
is
such
diminished
impertinence.
is perhaps more powerful because
ask,
it is
but I will not
chosen
answer.
I will
after
answer,
sacrifice.
But I will not be intimidated.
A man who has frequently chosen distance finally
resolved
opts
against
for
it.
nearness. And the choice matters exactly because it is rare. The domestic moments that follow are not mere epilogues. They are the measured aftermath
I have
of
returned.
work that
Mr.
required
Darcy, what brings
invisibility.
you back to Longbourn?
If you permit yourself this reading, the whole novel shimmers with a double life. Social slights become surveillance. Small fortunes are funding. Courtship sometimes resembles a strategy for integrating a civilian into a perimeter of trust. Bingley's geniality, often read as simple warmth, could easily be an advantage in this world. Affability lowers suspicion and allows movement. Even comic domesticity functions
I am
as
Lady
camouflage.
Catherine de Bourgh. My
People
character
are
demands I
less
speak with
attentive
authority,
to
and I,
curtains that
Elizabeth Bennet, known
move
for my sharp
when
wit
they
and
think a
independent spirit.
child is
You are to
playing with them.
understand, Miss Bennet, that I
I
shall
know
not
this
suffer
sounds
such
like putting a
impertinence.
cloak over
I am
Austen,
not to be intimidated.
like broadcasting an espionage
but I will
radio
not
drama
I will
under
answer,
her
but I
pages.
will not be intimidated.
But history keeps odd company with fiction. Wars do not
My
remain on
intentions were always
battlefields.
honourable.
They leak into parlors, and the people who live
My
with
dearest
those
Elizabeth,
leaks
I
become
must
practical
confess the true depth
custodians
of, my regard
of
and the reasons
quiet
for my earlier
facts.
conduct.
The most effective
I have been a
cover
selfish being
is
all my
ordinary
life.
routine. The less
You have
anyone
taught me a
looks
lesson.
for a spy in Hertfordshire,
Yes, I accept.
the better for the country. If an agent's life is judged by how unremarkable it is, then Darcy's ordinariness is exactly the point. So read the book again if you like. But hold one thought in reserve. What if those social smallnesses are also the instruments of preservation? Watch how he decides who to help and why. Notice what he will put money toward and what he will not. You will find a pattern that looks less like selfishness and more like a ledger rewritten in kind acts. The parlor can be a map, a joke can be a test, a letter can be a code. Whatever label you prefer, gentleman, guardian, secret keeper. The life imagined for Fitzwilliam Darcy in this reading is one of careful expenditure of intimacy. That expenditure has been purchased by distance for years. If he finally chooses to spend it, the choice is not merely romantic. It is the small
am yours,
payment
Elizabeth.
made after a
And
long
I,
account
yours, Mr. Darcy.
has been balanced. The book's wedding scene
Yes.
is still a wedding, yes, but it might also be the closing of a file in a drawer where no one will ever look. And if that complication annoys you because you love the simpler story, consider complexity is often where truth hides. People keep secrets for reasons that are cold and for reasons that are merciful. A life lived to protect others from the small betrayals of a dangerous age deserves a different kind of recognition than applause on a battlefield. If Darcy's pride sometimes looks like cruelty, it might also be protection. So there it is. Not a melodramatic plot twist, but a plausible underside. Ordinary life can hide extraordinary responsibility. If that reading sits with you, it gives the novel an additional weight. And perhaps that weight is the novel's secret kindness. Close the book or keep reading. Either way, try to keep one eye on the parlor and one on the ledger.